kidnapped. He raped. He murdered across 7 states. Over 30 women, young, bright, gone. He posed as a police officer. He wore a fake cast to gain their trust. He struck in daylight, in crowds, unseen. At night, he returned to their bodies to relive what he'd done. He decapitated some, kept the heads in his apartment. When caught, he smiled for the cameras, represented himself in court. Twice he escaped custody, crawled through a ceiling, walked out of jail. In Florida, he killed again, 2 women in a sorority house, a 12-year-old child. The nation watched the trial of a man who looked normal. Behind that calm face was one of history's most calculating killers. This is Ted Bundy. Before we continue, I want to quickly say, if you want more videos like this in the future, please subscribe and comment what truth you want uncovered next. Burlington, Vermont, 1946. A hospital on a hill, snow piled against its windows. Inside, a child is born without a father's name. They called him Theodore Robert Bundy. The papers logged the birth, nothing special. But in that quiet maternity ward, the story of an American nightmare began. He was raised in a house built on secrets. His mother pretended to be his sister. His grandparents, stern, silent, were called his parents. Lies were foundation, comfort, shelter. He learned early that truth could bend if told calmly enough. He watched how adults believed tone more than words. He remembered that. In the 1950s, the family moved west to Tacoma, Washington. New coast, same shadows, small white house, pine trees crowding the yard. He mowed lawns, carried groceries, waved to neighbors. Everyone said he was polite. Inside, he was studying them. At school, he stood alone, not shy, observant, watching classmates laugh and touch and trust. He copied their faces until they felt natural on him. Each smile practiced like handwriting. Summer evenings, he rode his bike until dark. Streetlights came on one by one, gold halos in fog. He stopped often, not to rest, but to watch. Through windows, through lives. He saw families framed like television scenes, and he wondered how it felt to be inside. Neighbors remembered him as quiet, clever. Teachers used the word gifted. But the quiet wasn't peace. It was calculation. When others asked questions, he listened for weaknesses in the answers. He liked puzzles, crosswords, maps, locks. The kind of challenges that yield if you push the right way. People were puzzles too. At home, discipline was iron. His grandfather ruled the house with anger and silence. He loved animals, then lost patience with them. The boy learned that control and cruelty could share the same heartbeat. By adolescence, the mask fit comfortably. He joined church groups, smiled for photographs, learned every gesture of normal. He discovered politics, debate, leadership. Speaking was a mirror. He could reflect what others wanted to hear. He watched couples in parking lots, not from desire but curiosity. The choreography of trust fascinated him. Why people looked away, why they believed safety was a constant. He studied human movement the way others studied sports. Later, investigators would call it stalking. To him, it was research. He earned scholarships, read psychology. In lectures, he learned about empathy, but only as theory. He memorized its vocabulary, not its feeling. Professors saw potential. They never saw the emptiness behind his focus. He volunteered at political campaigns, answered phones, smiled often, every smile rehearsed, every handshake measured for pressure and warmth. Inside, detachment grew like a second spine. He loved the idea of connection, but not the cost of maintaining it. relationships became performances with set lines and cues. When the script broke, irritation surfaced. People who disappointed him felt less than real. Friends described him as ambitious. Girlfriends called him intense. No one called him dangerous. Not yet. He attended the University of Washington, majoring in psychology. The irony would later echo through every headline. He studied abnormal behavior while sculpting his own. Tests said he was above average, disciplined, organized. They did not measure conscience. He met women who admired his calmness. He listened to their stories, repeated their words back softly, perfectly timed. They felt understood. He felt powerful. Control was his oxygen. He realized that true dominance came from invisibility, being trusted first. He practiced it in small ways, borrowing, lying, taking credit. Each success confirmed the same lesson. People rarely question what comforts them. In 1967, he met a woman who would define his type. Dark hair parted down the center, intelligent, refined. He mirrored her mannerisms until she thought they shared the same rhythm. When she ended it, something broke. Rejection became proof that the world owed him. Anger condensed into method. That same year, reports surfaced of stolen items on campus. Keys, IDs, small trophies. No one suspected him. His politeness was armor. He applied to law school, chasing status, structure, legitimacy. But what he wanted was permission to manipulate with authority. Rules fascinated him because they were doors waiting for keys. Around him, America changed. Vietnam on television, protests in the streets, students preaching freedom and self-expression. He took notes. Freedom looked like opportunity. At night, he wandered the city. Streetlights reflected in puddles. Shop windows showed his face and erased it again. He realized how easily a person could vanish between one reflection and the next. Some said he lacked emotion. He would have disagreed. He felt plenty: frustration, pride, superiority. But empathy was a language he never learned to translate. Other people's pain registered only as data. By his early 20s, the disguise was complete. He could imitate warmth, humor, even love. He became fluent in charm, fluent in lies. When he looked in the mirror, he didn't see deception. He saw evolution. Seattle changed with the decade. Rain on glass towers, coffee steam, wet asphalt, neon. Inside the noise, Ted Bundy became invisible. He volunteered for political campaigns, smiling, shaking hands, handing out flyers that read, "A better future." No one looked past the slogan to the man repeating it. He studied faces the way a surgeon studies anatomy. Every emotion was a muscle he could locate and cut. Charm became a weapon refined in public. He found that people believed what felt familiar. So he copied their gestures until they recognized themselves in him. That was the first trick. The rest came naturally. By 25, he looked the part of success. Short hair, pressed suit, law books stacked on the table. He joined crisis hotline services, answering phones for victims. He listened kindly. Co-workers called him patient, empathetic. They never noticed the fascination in his pauses. The same calm voice that comforted strangers was rehearsing control. Listening taught him tone. Suffering taught him opportunity. He left each shift with the same phrase echoing, "They trust me." Then women began disappearing. First in Oregon, then Washington. Young, educated, dark hair parted down the center. No connection except resemblance. Flyers spread across campus bulletin boards. Cars left in parking lots. No struggle, no witnesses. Just subtraction. Witnesses mentioned a man named Ted. Polite, well-spoken, with his arm in a cast. He asked for help loading a sailboat. They followed him into daylight and vanished. Detectives called it coincidence. Statistically impossible, but still coincidence. Police sketches appeared. Strong jaw, calm eyes. Students whispered that he looked like someone they knew. They weren't wrong. He switched license plates, changed cars, cities, mannerisms. Each new disguise taught him efficiency. He knew the country's roads, motels, backwoods. He planned routes like a cartographer mapping silence. By 1974, the numbers grew impossible to ignore. 7 women missing, then 8, then more. Search teams combed forests, rivers, mountains. Reporters filled pages with speculation and fear. Seattle locked its doors for the first time in memory. Parents drove their daughters to class. Bundy read every article. He enjoyed the phrasing, "the Phantom of the Pacific Northwest." The distance thrilled him. He was both subject and audience. He began keeping trophies, small things only he recognized. Objects became proof of control. Possession extended the feeling of presence. Even when the victim was gone, the power stayed. By summer, detectives formed a task force. Files stacked knee-high on every desk, maps covered in pins and string. Each red dot another question mark. Still, he blended in. He attended law lectures, went skiing, visited friends. He was always around people who later swore he seemed normal. Normal was the disguise, predictability his camouflage. He changed apartments, names, stories, borrowed identities, forged documents, borrowed trust. Every move another rehearsal for survival. A witness saw a man dragging something wrapped in cloth through the woods. Police arrived too late. Only tire tracks and blood in the soil. The pattern was clear now. Intelligence, patience, calculation. This wasn't impulse, it was architecture. When they released his description publicly, friends hesitated. Could it be him? The man from the campaign office, the student from class? They wanted denial more than truth. He watched the news that night, amused at the sketch that mirrored his own reflection. For the first time, he smiled honestly. They knew his face, but not his location. That was power. Through late 1974, bodies surfaced in forests east of Seattle. Each discovery brought relief and horror in equal measure. Relief for the families who finally had an answer. Horror, because the answer was him. Investigators found no fingerprints, no witnesses, no mistakes. He studied their methods in newspapers and adjusted his own. He was learning them faster than they were learning him. That winter, he moved to Utah to start again. A new school, a new name, a clean slate of strangers. He joined the church, attended classes, smiled for photographs. The pattern reset. But soon the same headlines appeared. Women gone. Same description, same car, same control. By year's end, the FBI created a national database. Too late. He had already learned to travel before attention caught up. For every border crossed, another jurisdiction lost track. In Utah, he dated, went camping with friends, told jokes, played the part. Then at night, he hunted again. Each success emboldened him. Each escape rewired consequence. He began to think of himself as untouchable, invisible, not because he hid, but because people refused to see. By early 1975, the list of missing names filled entire bulletin boards. Bundy attended police science lectures, watching detectives explain their own limitations. He smiled, taking notes. Control had become religion. Fear was worship. He wanted to be myth while still alive. And slowly, the myth began to take shape. Autumn 1974. Leaves rotted into rainwater along Seattle sidewalks. The air smelled of panic and wet pine. Every woman in Washington state seemed to look over her shoulder. Ted Bundy was already gone. He drove east through Idaho into Utah. His tan Volkswagen Beetle blended into every parking lot. No badge, no caste this time, just confidence. He learned that familiarity bred trust, but surprise sealed control. Salt Lake City welcomed him as a law student, quiet, polite, a little shy. He helped neighbors carry groceries. He went to church. He waved at police. When they found the first body in a canyon north of town, no one thought of the man who smiled at their doors. He had adjusted everything: timing, distance, disposal. He called it improvement. Detectives called it escalation. In November, a highway patrolman noticed a car creeping through residential streets at 3 a.m., headlights off. When the officer stopped him, Bundy's tone was casual. "A law student on a drive," he said. Inside the car, rope, handcuffs, a crowbar, a ski mask. He was arrested on suspicion, released for lack of proof. He drove home planning his next revision. Every failure taught him precision. He replaced license plates, burned maps, memorized routes. He rehearsed answers aloud so each lie landed clean. In 1975, another woman vanished near a ski resort. Tracks in the snow led to tire marks, same tread as the tan beetle. Investigators finally drew a line between Utah, Washington, Colorado, a single predator migrating by freeway. They built a task force under the FBI. Hundreds of suspects, one name repeated: Ted. He was questioned once, calm and courteous. He thanked them for their time. They let him go. That summer, his girlfriend contacted police after seeing composite sketches. She listed his habits, his car, his moods. Officers took notes, filed them away. No one wanted to believe the neat student could be the phantom. Bundy followed the investigation like a scholar reading his own biography. He clipped newspaper stories, corrected their errors in the margins. When they finally searched his apartment, it was immaculate. Books alphabetized, photographs framed, evidence erased with the precision of a man grading his own exam. They charged him anyway. Karen Campbell, Colorado. Carol DeRanche, Utah. Kidnapping. Attempted murder. He smiled through arraignment, offered to represent himself again. In jail, he studied law manuals by flashlight. He learned procedural timing, appeal deadlines, evidence rules. He treated incarceration like coursework. Every hearing became theater. He objected smoothly, quoted precedent, flirted with reporters. The press called him handsome, articulate. He fed on the words like fuel. In June 1977, they moved him to the Pitkin County Courthouse in Aspen. He noted the layout, the windows, the distance to the woods beyond. During recess, he asked permission to consult case files. They left him unshackled. He jumped from a second-floor window into the pines and disappeared. For 6 days, he lived off stolen food and mountain streams. Tourists reported a disheveled man hiking trails at dusk. When deputies caught him, he was smiling again. He said the experience had been invigorating. Guards tightened security. He studied their patterns. Christmas 1977, snow outside, the jail quiet except for a leaking pipe. He used a hacksaw blade hidden in books to cut a hole through the ceiling of his cell, stacked law books to reach it, crawled through the rafters, slid into the chief jailer's empty apartment above, changed clothes, stole cash, walked out the front door. It was his second escape, his cleanest. He stole a car, drove east again. Every state line felt like rebirth. Florida awaited sun, anonymity, and an endless supply of strangers. Detectives woke the next morning to silence and disbelief. One door open, one man gone, and a trail of paperwork marking their failure. Within days, posters of his face blanketed the country. Airports, bus stations, diners. The caption read, "Escaped murder suspect at large." He read them too. He liked the word large. As 1978 began, the investigation spread coast to coast. Agents slept in offices. Phones rang without pause. Leads died faster than they arrived. Each state had its own jurisdiction, its own chaos. He used it like camouflage. Reporters speculated he had fled to Canada. Others said Mexico. In truth, he was in a boarding house in Tallahassee using the name Chris Hagen, reading local papers by lamplight. He circled stories about the ongoing search, each circle a small private victory. By then, the task force understood his pattern but not his motive. He was killing for control, not desire, for attention, not need. Every hunt was rehearsal for the final performance, to be seen, understood, and still untouchable. Florida would end that illusion. But for now, he walked among the living, calm as ever, one step ahead. January 1978, Florida State University. Warm night, music drifting from open windows, the hum of campus life returning after holidays. Ted Bundy was already inside the city. He had driven for days, sleeping in rest stops, stealing credit cards and fuel. In Tallahassee, he found a room in a small boarding house near the university. He called himself Chris Hagen, paid in cash, no questions asked. He looked thinner now, hollow eyes, restless hands. Escape had cost him sleep, but given him confidence. He was the only man in America with his face on every newsstand, yet no one recognized him. For weeks, he lived quietly. He read crime novels, visited bars, watched students come and go. He noticed doors left unlocked, laughter spilling down hallways, safety taken for granted. He blended in. January 15th, 3 a.m. Chi Omega Sorority House, Tallahassee. Lights flickered behind drawn curtains. Bundy entered through an unlocked rear door. What happened next was brief and brutal. When police arrived, 2 women were dead, 2 more wounded. No witnesses, only destruction. Outside, magnolia trees swayed under street lamps. The quiet of campus felt unnatural. Students whispered his name without knowing it was him. He fled again, north through Florida back roads, hiding in motels, feeding on adrenaline. For days he stole cars, wallets, identities, each theft smaller, each mistake larger. In February, he approached a high school student in Lake City. Her name was Kimberly Leach, 12 years old. She vanished between classes, broad daylight. The state trembled. Roadblocks sprouted across counties. Helicopters traced grids above swamps. Still, he moved freely, driving stolen cars and smiling when officers waved him through. On February 15th, a Pensacola patrolman noticed a damaged orange Volkswagen in a supermarket lot. He ran the plate. Stolen. He followed it, siren off. When he pulled the car over, the driver bolted. They wrestled in the street. The officer won. Bundy's final words before handcuffs clicked. "I wish you'd killed me." Back at the station, they found IDs, maps, and stolen credit cards. He gave a fake name, Kenneth Misner, then another, then silence. Fingerprints ended the game. The match lit headlines across America. The Phantom had a body again. Florida filed charges for the Chi Omega murders. The governor called it personal. Public fury eclipsed curiosity. The nation wanted closure. Bundy studied his reflection in the jail mirror. Sunburned, thinner, still composed. He planned to defend himself again. Control was all he had left. In June 1979, the trial opened in Miami's Dade County Courthouse. Television cameras filled every corner, America's first live broadcast murder trial. Spectators camped overnight for seats. Some came to see justice, others to see charm. Bundy entered wearing a navy suit and grin. He greeted reporters by name, thanked guards for coffee, waved at the gallery. The courtroom became theater, and he, the lead actor. He objected, cross-examined, smiled to the jury. He performed intelligence as innocence. Prosecutors countered with evidence, bite marks, fingerprints, eyewitnesses, photographs of chaos. Each exhibit chipped away at his composure. When victims' families cried, he looked down, expression unreadable. When reporters asked how he felt, he said, "Fine." Outside, television vans formed a village of cables and heat. America divided itself between fascination and fear. Some wrote him letters, some sent him money. A few women attended court daily, swearing he was misunderstood. The phenomenon had begun. The verdict came July 24, 1979. Guilty on all counts. When read aloud, he smiled slightly, as if he'd solved a puzzle only he understood. 2 weeks later, the judge pronounced the sentence, death by electric chair. He thanked the court for its professionalism. Reporters wrote that he seemed relieved. As he left the room, flashbulbs burst. He looked straight into one and said quietly, "Tell the people I'm fine." Rayford Prison, Florida, January 24, 1989, 7 to 16 a.m. The body was declared lifeless. Within minutes, the world began to talk again. Outside the gate, smoke and cheering. Students, survivors, strangers, hundreds pressing against barricades. Some carried signs, others grills. "Burn, Bundy, burn." They cooked breakfast as the execution chamber cooled. Reporters narrated the celebration like a parade. Helicopters circled overhead, blades chopping through the morning fog. The sky turned pink. The air smelled of gasoline and meat. Florida had witnessed its final act of vengeance. Inside, guards filled forms. One logged equipment inspected and returned to storage. Another wrote subject cremated per protocol. Routine language for an event millions were waiting to see. The story moved at the speed of electricity. By 8 a.m., every network had the headline, "Bundy, dead at 42." Anchors used solemn tones. They paused before his name as if to measure the years of fear it carried. For some, it was closure. For others, anticlimax. Evil had ended not with confession, but with paperwork. Outside the prison fence, microphones multiplied. Children on shoulders, vendors selling coffee, cameras fogging with breath. A man from Gainesville sold souvenir t-shirts. "I survived Bundy." A preacher shouted verses through a megaphone. Someone played rock music from a truck bed. The line between justice and spectacle dissolved in humid air. An older woman stood apart, quiet, clutching a photograph of her daughter. No smile, no tears, just stillness. When asked if she felt relief, she said, "Relief is for endings. This isn't one." Television loved the noise, not the silence. They aired interviews with strangers who called it redemption. Cameras avoided faces that looked uncertain. Certainty sells better. Governor's office issued a short statement. Sentence carried out successfully. That word, successfully, revealed everything. The state had completed a task, not healed a wound. In Tallahassee, police officers who once chased his trail watched coverage from break rooms. Some clapped, others left early. A detective folded his badge in his hand and whispered, "Finally." But he wasn't sure what finally meant. FBI agents debriefed quietly in Quantico. New analysts took notes. The Bureau's behavioral science unit had matured under his shadow. Now they faced a vacuum. The subject that defined their methods was gone. They reviewed transcripts, tape reels, crime scene photos. Bundy had been both lesson and warning. They called him the blueprint. Privately, some called him the mirror. By afternoon, talk show hosts debated morality. Was it right to televise death? Would children imitate what they saw? Audience applause answered both questions before panelists could. Networks replayed archive footage, him smiling in court, walking handcuffed, waving at cameras. Each replay polished the myth further. He became performance again, controlled, composed, immortal through repetition. In print, editorials used identical phrasing, "Evil dies in Florida." But evil didn't die. It simply lost its spokesman. Publishers rushed special editions. One tabloid used a black cover with white serif letters. Bundy, the end. It sold out in hours. Across the country, families of the missing followed the same broadcast. Some were at work, some still asleep. They learned from television that the man who took their daughters was gone. They sat in kitchens, hands on mugs, silence heavy. A mother in Washington state said later, "I wanted to feel something when he died. Instead, I just turned off the TV." For them, justice was an abstract word. The dead stayed dead. Execution couldn't return birthdays, voices, photographs unblurred by grief. Many never received bodies at all, just confirmation through fragments, bones, teeth, jewelry. Finality without reunion. Back in Washington, detectives reopened old case files, not to prosecute, just to understand. They wanted to map the full scope, to mark every unknown coordinate. Maps filled with pins again. New patterns appeared, each a theory, none provable. Bundy's confessions were inconsistent. He admitted to more than 30, hinted at 50, maybe 100. He left blanks deliberately. Ambiguity was his final control. Analysts cross-checked vehicle sightings, gas receipts, highway logs. Every state along the western corridor had ghosts of his movements. Forensics advanced, DNA testing improved, but evidence had decayed decades earlier. The unanswered stayed unanswered. Universities turned his name into coursework. Criminology departments dissected transcripts, not bodies. Students diagrammed personality traits, comparing them with clinical scales. Professors warned against fascination, then projected his photographs on large screens. Irony unnoticed. Psychology journals published analyses within months of his death. They used sterile terms: psychopathy, narcissistic reinforcement, instrumental aggression. Each article attempted to quantify absence. Each failed the same way, by assuming he could be decoded through words. Forensic psychiatry evolved nonetheless. Profilers became celebrities. The behavioral science unit toured conferences. Bundy, ironically, had professionalized the study of himself. Hollywood moved quickly. Screenplays circulated before the ashes cooled. Networks bought rights from acquaintances, girlfriends, jailhouse guards. A mini-series aired within a year. Critics praised the performance, not the victim's portrayal. Merchandise appeared: books, t-shirts, trading cards in true crime magazines. A paradox: the man society killed became income again. Sociologists later called it commodified fear. Audiences wanted control over terror, so they bought it in paperback. Owning the story meant taming it. Meanwhile, law enforcement rebuilt. Federal grants funded databases linking unsolved murders across states. Computer systems replaced filing cabinets. The term serial killer entered mainstream vocabulary, partly his doing. Interagency cooperation improved. No more jurisdictional isolation. Lessons paid for in lives. DNA technology matured. His preserved samples became early test cases for new matching methods. Out of tragedy came infrastructure, the paradox of progress through horror. By 1992, task forces used his case as standard lecture material. Failure of coordination. Younger agents memorized his timeline like scripture, each detail a caution against arrogance. After the headlines faded, silence returned. The families stopped answering journalists. Detectives retired. Public moved on. Bundy's letters remained sealed for a decade, stored in archive boxes at the Department of Corrections. Inside, sketches, essays, fragments of ego. Some described theology, others listed names crossed out mid-sentence. Archivists logged them, unreadable without context. The myth went dormant, waiting for nostalgia. Every monster becomes history once attention wanes. 6 years after his death, a new generation entered college having never seen him live on TV. They met him through documentaries. Distance turned terror into curiosity. Bundy became a case study, not a person. Survivors noticed the shift. They said the world had forgotten fear and kept fascination. They were right. His name moved from front pages to libraries, from police radio to pop culture, from danger to metaphor. The cycle was complete. Act, capture, death, analysis, entertainment. He had achieved what he sought, permanent relevance. Even in absence, control persisted. The 1990s opened with questions science still couldn't answer. Why did one man's emptiness leave such a mark? Why did people feel safer hearing his name than forgetting it? The hunt was over, yet the analysis had just begun. In universities, Bundy became curriculum. Entire courses on criminal personality began with his photo. Projectors hummed in dark auditoriums as professors dissected his every phrase. Students took notes on evil like it was a foreign language. Behavioral science entered fashion. Government funding followed headlines. Quantico expanded. New divisions formed: Behavioral Analysis Unit, Violent Criminal Apprehension Program. His file was the seed data for both. Psychologists reread transcripts like scripture. They counted pauses, coded adjectives, charted pronoun frequency. Every syllable became a variable. They wanted formula, pattern, prediction. But he had built a puzzle designed to mislead. By mid-decade, experts realized studying him meant staring into reflection. He represented traits modern culture rewarded: confidence, charisma, adaptability, minus empathy. A distortion, not an alien. Researchers debated, nature or design? Was he born without empathy, or did he edit it out? Brain scans offered no mutation. Upbringing showed no single wound. The terror lay in normality. New theories emerged: instrumental violence, aggression used like a tool; cognitive empathy, understanding emotion without sharing it; mimetic persona, imitation of moral behavior for social advantage, each term an attempt to map an absence. Television dramatized the analysts: Mindhunter, Profiler, CSI. Entire franchises borrowed his ghost. The FBI's quiet science turned into entertainment. Audiences learned jargon before juries did. Inside Quantico, veteran profilers warned new recruits. Every monster starts as somebody's favorite student. They built checklists: childhood cruelty, bedwetting, fire setting, later proven too simple. Bundy had none of them. He forced science to look deeper, at manipulation, not madness. Seminars filled conference centers. PowerPoint replaced chalk. Slides showed his smile beside bullet points labeled masking behavior. Applause followed the conclusion that evil could be quantified. Clinical papers multiplied. Some called him malignant narcissist. Others said pure sociopath, extreme psychopathy, adaptive predator. All were partly right. None touched motive. He killed for control, and control cannot be measured. One journal proposed a theory of ego maintenance. He murdered not for pleasure, but to stabilize identity. Without dominance, self dissolved. Killing became existence. Ethicists argued whether publicizing such cases glorified pathology. Universities debated consent. Can the dead refuse examination? The answer came anyway. Fascination outruns ethics. Feminist scholars reframed the narrative. They said his violence mirrored society's quiet permission, how culture romanticized charm even when it manipulated. Films about him showed handsome faces, not victims' fear. Media loved the contradiction. Attractive killer, civilized monster. It sold copies and confirmed bias. Researchers traced headlines over decades. Male journalists called him intelligent, magnetic, complex. Female reporters called him predatory, rehearsed, empty. Two vocabularies describing one body. The contrast exposed collective blindness. Evil described as personality instead of choice. By 2000, cable networks filled late-night slots with reenactments. Each show recycled archive footage, voiceovers heavy with gravitas. Producers discovered tension was reusable. Every retelling reset curiosity. Documentary hosts spoke in hushed tones about psychology. Advertisements aired between segments. Fear was monetized in 30-second intervals. Bundy became the algorithm before algorithms. He guaranteed ratings. His name was metadata for evil. Executives didn't need to understand him, only to license him. The internet arrived. With it came forums, chat rooms, digital archives. Case photos once sealed now circulated endlessly. Discussion threads dissected minutiae, tire treads, handwriting, interviews. Amateurs built entire websites from obsession. Law enforcement observed silently, uneasy. Data spread faster than verification. Rumor replaced evidence. Myth reproduced itself in code. He was dead, yet new witnesses appeared weekly online. People claimed encounters, letters, dreams. The machine fed on belief. In digital space, he became open-source evil, editable, shareable, permanent. Technology that could have stopped him matured after his death. DNA sequencing entered courtrooms. Computers compared patterns across states in seconds. The combined DNA index system, CODIS, went live in 1998. His case was an invisible ancestor of every entry. Cold cases reopened, not to prove his guilt, but to apply his lessons. Interstate cooperation became law. Databases unified victims, evidence, and timelines. Progress born from failure. Forensic psychologists joined homicide teams routinely. The line between cop and clinician blurred. Each scene became both investigation and experiment. As fascination expanded, resistance formed. Victims' families spoke out against sensationalism. They said focus had shifted from suffering to spectacle. Some universities banned reenactments, citing re-traumatization. Others doubled enrollment in criminology courses. Hypocrisy remained efficient. Scholars argued that empathy fatigue was the modern plague. Constant exposure dulled conscience. Every headline a dopamine dose, every tragedy another episode. They asked whether studying monsters makes us better, or simply more like them. No consensus formed. 10. The reflection. By mid-2000s, students who analyzed his file were younger than his crimes. They viewed him historically, not emotionally. Distance sterilized fear. Professors reminded them he was not mystery. He was consequence, a product of neglect, denial, and trust abused too easily. But students still circled back to the same question. How could someone look normal and be that empty? Because normality is mimicry, and mimicry can learn anything. 11. The expert interviews. Television crews tracked down the original investigators. Gray-haired men in suits spoke about the chase. Each remembered a different version. One said, he wasn't insane, he was efficient. Another said, he made us human because he reminded us what we ignore. Psychologists who once interviewed him appeared too. Some defended their work, others regretted it. They confessed that in the room, it was easy to forget what he'd done. That was his final power, suspending judgment through composure. One said, he understood silence better than any therapist. 12. The reassessment. By 2010, the field had matured. Risk assessment tools replaced intuition. Checklists gave probabilities. Behavioral analysts relied on data, not charisma. But every algorithm still carried his fingerprint. He remained the template against which danger was calibrated. Conferences used him as historical case zero. Slides compared new killers to him, similar IQ, similar social camouflage. The pattern persisted because the structure of trust never changed. Experts concluded evil was not anomaly, it was iteration. Bundy proved humanity's software can be rewritten from within. 13. The fade to philosophy. As academic interest peaked, spiritual debate resurfaced. Priests, rabbis, imams discussed forgiveness, redemption, justice. Could a soul that denied guilt still find absolution? Theologians disagreed. Psychologists shrugged. Science measures behavior, not redemption. Ethics panels quoted ancient texts beside case law. The results sounded identical. Human responsibility remains unsolved. Bundy was evidence, not answer. 14. The cultural saturation. The name no longer frightened. It branded documentaries, podcasts, even humor. Society had absorbed him like background radiation, unseen but measurable. The final stage of familiarity, indifference. Children who saw his image on streaming thumbnails asked parents, "Who's that?" Parents said, "A bad man from before you were born," then scrolled past. History condensed to a caption. He had achieved what fame promises, recognition without context. The century turned, but the shadow stayed. 2 decades after the chair, Bundy was data now, bits, pixels, search results. Evil converted to archive format, and people kept clicking. Streaming platforms revived him first. True crime catalogs needed recognizable names. Algorithms rediscovered his smile. Thumbnails sharpened, contrast raised, title fonts in red. YouTube documentaries, Netflix dramatizations, podcasts in whispering tones, all repeating what courts once silenced. View counts climbed past millions. Each replay rewarded recommendation loops. Evil had become evergreen content. Bandwidth replaced blood. Audiences binge-watched horror as comfort. It was organized, safe, controllable. The murders stopped frightening. They entertained. Distance turns tragedy into genre. Podcasters replaced professors. Microphones where court stenographers once sat. They spoke softly, edited cleanly, scored confession with ambient piano. Listeners drove to work hearing autopsies between ads for coffee subscriptions. Information democratized, context diluted. Facts blended with speculation until emotion decided truth. Each episode ended the same way. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe. Commerce folded around cruelty again. Sociologists call it participatory fear. Millions perform curiosity together to feel moral unity. We analyze monsters to remind ourselves we're not one. Then came the admirers. Online forums calling him misunderstood. Teenagers posting edits set to slow music, labeling him mysterious. Romanticization masked by irony. It spread faster than any virus. Psychologists warned of hybristophilia, attraction to violent men. But digital empathy doesn't smell of blood. It smells of pixels. Fantasy cleans the evidence. The face becomes aesthetic. Platforms moderated images, then monetized attention anyway. Morality outsourced to algorithms. Each takedown spawned 10 more uploads. Infamy became immortality. Amid noise, survivors began speaking again, some through documentaries, others through classrooms and memorial foundations. They told ordinary stories, friendships, classes, laughter. They reclaimed individuality from statistics. One said, "Every time they show his face, I want them to show ours." Documentaries adjusted slowly. Modern series now include full segments on victims' lives before violence. The camera finally turned outward, not redemption, correction. Yet metrics favored darkness over light. Episodes about grief drew fewer views. The market still preferred the killer. Universities revisited the case under a new lens: media ethics. Professors asked why the same culture that condemned him kept resurrecting him. Students suggested attention itself was addiction. Clicks followed fear. Fear followed content. The loop sustained itself. Research papers charted the economics of fascination. Keywords: Bundy, serial, killer, ranked above victim, trauma, healing. Search engines expose collective preference more honestly than confessionals. In lecture halls, one phrase echoed, "We don't study him anymore. We study ourselves studying him." Artificial intelligence joined the archive. Voice synthesis replicated his speech for analysis. Deep fakes restored his expressions. Virtual reality placed users inside reconstructed crime scenes. Education blurred with simulation. Critics called it progress. Ethicists called it desecration. Both were right. Human curiosity demands proximity, then denies responsibility. AI models learned from his interviews, predicting behavior in hypothetical profiles. He became a data set for empathy training, software detecting manipulation by referencing his tone. Even in absence, he contributed to pattern recognition. Machine learning fed on his pathology like digital carrion. Global crises reshaped attention. Terrorism, pandemics, financial collapse. Fear diversified. Bundy remained baseline, the reference point for every new headline labeled monster. Journalists still compared modern criminals to him. He's the new Bundy, they said, shorthand for incomprehensible charm. The comparison cheapened both history and horror. But it saved time in copy editing. Cultural amnesia made repetition feel new. Every generation relearns him like folklore, a cautionary tale told through modern lighting. His crimes forced evolution long after death. Victim databases linked across continents. Amber alerts flashed on phones. DNA kits arrived at every station. Profilers testified as standard experts. Judges referenced his case to justify transparency. Public records digitized to prevent secrecy. Even wrongful conviction reviews cited him as reason evidence must outlive its keeper. Law became the monument society built against his ghost. No statues, only protocols. By the 2010s, the surviving victims lived quieter lives. Some lectured on resilience, others chose silence. They aged while his image stayed 42 forever. Time preserved him more kindly than it did them. They met each other occasionally at conferences, rarely in public. Shared glances replaced words. Each recognized the other's endurance instantly, an unspoken fraternity of survival. When asked what they wanted remembered, one said that we kept living. No algorithm could amplify that quote long enough. Archivists organized the paper trail: interviews, photos, cassette tapes, trial transcripts, psychological assessments, millions of pages digitized and tagged. Future scholars inherited a complete anatomy of atrocity. They debated classification. Was he criminal, historical, mythological? Categories failed, metadata won. He exists now as search term, cross-linked forever. When researchers open digital files, timestamps from 1974 blend with uploads from 2024. Time collapses. The archive makes him current again. Language evolved. Reporters stopped saying evil. They said pathology, abnormal psychology, maladaptive, behavior. Clinical tone replaced moral vocabulary, precision without judgment. But ordinary people still needed words with edges, so they kept monster, a label that simplifies and protects. We name darkness to feel separate from it. He proved separation is illusion. Artists appropriated the story. Exhibits showing collages of mugshots, courtroom sketches burned into film, pain translated into commentary. Museums debated inclusion, commemorate victims, or critique obsession. One installation played his trial audio through a wall of mirrors. Visitors heard words, saw themselves. That was the point. Critics argued the line between remembrance and exploitation had vanished. Maybe it was never there. Generation Z discovered him through memes. Short clips captioned ironically, POV. You meet a charming guy in the 70s. Humor is armor, distance through laughter. Tragedy converted to shareable content. Educators responded with context threads, statistics, empathy prompts. The cycle repeated. Fascination, moral outrage, silence, fascination again. Every feed an echo chamber of selective forgetting. Bundy's legend evolved faster than textbooks could update. Digital immortality granted him what execution denied: endless audience. Philosophers revisited the case as mirror of civilization. They said he revealed the fragility of empathy in modern systems. When performance equals virtue, deception wins. He weaponized courtesy. Society applauded until too late. They asked whether technology now teaches empathy or only its simulation. Because every algorithm that mimics human emotion risks repeating his experiment: connection without conscience. Half a century after his first crime, he remains reference point and revenue stream. His face exists in more resolutions than any victim photo. That imbalance endures as indictment. Every generation swears it won't repeat fascination. Every generation fails, because fascination is not weakness, it's recognition. We study predators to measure our own capacity for control. Evil does not end. It migrates formats, from courthouse to television, from television to internet, from internet to neural network, each version claiming closure, none providing it. The real legacy is not him, but the infrastructure built to remember him. Databases, documentaries, debates, all proof that forgetting is impossible once curiosity pays bills. And so the story loops, analysis feeding myth, myth feeding economy, economy feeding memory, until his name becomes utility, shorthand for the darkness that markets itself politely.